Hello, you guys. Welcome back to Eldest Daughter, a podcast in discovery of what makes a cycle breaker. Per usual, we'll be diving into the experiences, identities, and choices that go into becoming somebody who defines their role for themselves rather than adopting the ones that were given to them. And I'm Kendra Austin, your host. And today I am joined by a very, very special guest, Roselle Smith.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, absolutely.
Yeah.
Kara is an activist, most importantly. I think that's her most stunning contribution to the world. In addition to being a really, really amazing content creator. You're so beautiful. You have a voice made for ASMR.
Thank you so much.
Truly. And that's why I'm so happy to have you here.
I love that. I feel like sometimes you hear your voice without that echo in your head.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's heinous. Completely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I understand 100%. First, we just have to dive into what your big three is.
Sure. Okay. Wait, do you have any guesses?
Okay. Oh my God, that's a great question. Okay, I feel like you definitely have some fire. I'm gonna go with, and you're also a truth teller. But you're clearly a first. I'm gonna go with Aries or Sag, Sun.
That's my son, Aries. That's crazy.
Okay. I rarely can do that. I rarely can do that. Typically I get the moon as the sun.
Okay.
And then I feel like you might have an earth moon, maybe like Virgo.
Okay.
Or Taurus.
Okay. I get that a lot, but my moon is Aquarius.
That's stunning.
Thank you.
I'm an Aquarius sun.
Oh wait, I feel like I knew this for some
Yeah.
reason, probably just because I was like stalking.
Yeah, I'm an Aquarius sun.
Word.
Wow, so you're a full truth teller. That's like your whole destiny. What's your rising?
Yeah, my rising Scorpio.
And there it is. You will not let
Little bit
people
of water.
forget. Yeah, exactly.
But like the fire of water.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Martian energy.
Exactly.
I love that.
Thank you.
You're powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm afraid of
Thank you. Wait, so I know your sun.
Yeah.
What is your moon and rising?
I'm a Taurus moon.
Okay.
And I'm a Capricorn rising.
Nice.
The two of us have bad bitch risings.
Yeah.
Like
definitely.
Scorpio rising, Capricorn rising, there's nothing that we can't do together.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Like boss, bad.
Exactly. But it's also a tough life path.
Yeah.
That's
No,
the
I've
thing.
heard that.
Yeah,
and I
completely.
felt that.
Right. We have
For
to go
sure.
through all of the lessons in order to be the people who are
Yes.
like sharing and creating safe space.
Absolutely.
And that's really hard to carry.
It is.
Yeah.
I
Because
get
it feels
tired
like,
a lot.
Of course you
I
do.
get tired often. I feel like
course you
this
do.
year though, I'm in a little bit of a period where I feel a little bit lighter.
Yeah.
But it's still like the constant death and rebirth with Scorpio.
Of course.
Is a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Spiritual, literal, all of the things.
Yes.
What were you like as a child?
That's a
I'm so
cool
curious
question.
about that.
Thank you.
You know, Aries is like the baby of the zodiac.
We
So
are the
usually
baby
those
of the
people
zodiac.
tend to look and seem the same way their entire lives, which is fascinating to me.
Kendra. Okay. Well. Okay. I'm like.
I
Gagged.
know, you're like, where do I go?
Okay, so that I resonate with that.
Yeah.
I definitely look the same. Like all of my friends will look at baby pictures and it's like, you're the same.
Right.
Same face, everything. And I think I'm really similar. I was an only child. So like a little peculiar, liked my alone time.
Totally.
But I was really imaginative. I think I like played pretend a lot, like many kids. But I actually had this business called Local Store.
No,
that I started,
you're an icon.
that I started, and I like would make pamphlets and would have my mom shop. Like she's my only shopper,
Right.
but like she would shop. I would like make shoes for her to buy. She would give me like real money. Like it was an exchange.
Of course,
But
as it should be.
I was working, so I earned it. But yeah, I did things like that. We looked at houses a lot and we moved kind of
Right.
frequently. So those floor plans
Yeah.
that are, like the spec homes, I would draw the house in my mind and I would draw floor plans. Like I did that often. And I would like make families
Wow.
that I'd want to put that in them.
Did you have a consistent imaginary friend?
I didn't actually have like any imaginary friends. I don't remember ever having one. Did
But you were dreaming of a future.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, I think I was always
Yeah.
like creating and dreaming of a future and just like, pulling from this place of like making.
Totally. Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you talk about like creating floor plans, it reminds me of like when I was younger, I was really obsessed with like seasonally changing my bedroom. Like my mom would come in and be like, "Oh, you're doing that again." And I'm like,
Yes.
"Well, it's a sleigh and the
Absolutely.
feng shui is off." You know what I'm
Right.
saying? I'm not the same bitch I was yesterday.
I have to switch it up. You
Yeah,
don't get it, it's
completely.
okay.
That's
But-
exactly right. Totally.
yeah,
But
yeah.
now I look back and I'm like, I feel like I was really, really motivated because I also moved a lot as a child.
Yeah.
And I think that like I became addicted to change. And
I feel very comfortable with change also.
Yeah,
I really
totally.
like I actually love it.
I love
thrive
it.
off of it. And people will be like, "Oh, I have to move again." And I'm like, "I have to move again." Like, you know that meme where it's like the person looking out the window
right.
versus
And looking at the rock.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Totally.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because I found that becoming comfortable with change also meant knowing when home is calling and what home looks like and what belonging really is.
Yeah.
How have you come to define that for yourself as somebody, like, you're so deeply rooted in community. Obviously your work is entirely community centered. We'll get into that in a minute in specificity, but yeah, like, what does it mean to like call back to home and to belonging as somebody who enjoys change? Like, how do you find home in yourself again?
I think that even though like routines can change, I cultivate that in form of routine and of kind of having like staples that
like
I
ritual?
do. Yeah, exact ritual. Thank you. That's the word. Yeah, I think that my mornings look pretty similar across the board unless I'm traveling. But I make myself like oatmeal that I love.
Period.
Got chocolate chips.
Oatmeal is a bad bitch
like
breakfast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it
like
is.
I'm getting my nutrients.
Totally.
So I like make that for myself. Something I've been doing recently too. I'm a tea drinker. I don't drink coffee. But I have been making ashwagandha root tea every morning.
Transformative.
Yeah. So like finding little rituals in those ways. And for a while I was meditating the start of this year. But I've fallen off a little bit. But doing those things in the midst of like movement, keeping that steady really helps me out.
Totally. Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
You mentioned you've fallen off meditation a little bit, but I love meditation.
Really. I found myself also because of baby zodiac Aries.
Totally.
The patience.
Antsy.
Sometimes it's
I
really
know.
bad.
Like,
It's
get me the
really
hell out of
bad.
here. Totally.
Yeah, and I like really try to focus, but I'm like, am I breathing? Like, there's a million things going on.
No, I was about to say that's the thing too with the Aquarius moon. Like, it's a little bit cerebral. It's very, very hard to get into your body.
Yeah.
And to like escape your thoughts.
Yeah.
Or to let them just be, because you
To
want
let
to
them be.
you want to draw the conclusions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I get so tired of drawing conclusions.
Yeah, of course
But
you do.
I love that you love meditation. I
Yeah,
hope to keep
completely.
that way.
You know what? It's been a very, very long time though that I've been practicing meditation. I fall in and out of it myself. It's also not something like, I have like a very fraught relationship with routine. I've realized that ritual is most important to me, and knowing that I can always come back to something is in itself the dream, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that I can come back feels good to me. But yeah, I found that meditation is helpful because I've learned how to like observe thoughts and patterns and hopes and dreams without like self-condemnation, which is really important for the kind of work that we do.
Yeah.
Especially when you share so much of yourself on the internet.
Definitely.
And other people are going to nitpick and they're going to impose their opinions, and they're also going to impose the resistance that you actually intend to create.
Yep.
And I know that you're somebody that like also intends to create friction in people's daily life because they need to draw attention to things that they think are not about them.
Right.
Right. Which is so important.
Definitely.
Let's get into that a little bit.
Sure.
So you are a member of the Chappaquiddick Wampanoag.
You are. I mean, I am.
Exactly. Well,
I was going to say you said it right, and then my brain was like crosswire.
You said you are. Thank you so much.
You are.
Thank you for welcoming me.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. Which, if I remember correctly, that's your traditional lands are the Nuepe.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Most commonly known as Martha's Vineyard. Incorrect.
Yep.
Incorrect. Get that out of your mouth.
I'm learning.
Right. Exactly.
I'm working
on. No, you did a lot. You did a lot. You did a lot. I truly am such a part of the fandom.
Thank you.
For many reasons. Like, I feel like you welcome your audience into like the sweetness and the joys and the delights as much as you do like the impending importance of reclaiming land.
Yeah.
And both of those things are so present. What was your intention in sharing so much about your people and the ancestry, and also obviously land reclamation?
Yeah, I mean, I think that my biggest intention is to have reparations and to reclaim stories of my ancestors. Like, just to like the fact that like I'm here because they were and they did.
Right.
And I want to carry that on.
That's so
and
powerful.
I grew up, my mom was very vocal about our ancestry. She was the tribal historian for a long time. I saw, papers, everything was all around me since I was young. And then my mom actually became the chief of our tribe, which for a woman, it's called a songs. And so she was the chief of our tribe. And I just also really wanted to continue and carry on the information that she was giving me.
Right.
Yeah, I think that.
And so you had that desire early on.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I think I've grown into it for sure.
Yeah.
I've had an interest in it, and I think not everybody, but speaking for myself when I was younger, I think there's a part of you that's like, oh, like I don't want to, like this is like history, like I'm kind of
it's like it's boring and it's hard.
Exactly. And I think that also had to do with me primarily living in white spaces a lot of my life, and like all through school I lived in pretty white spaces.
Right.
So I think that influenced my interest a little bit.
Completely. 100%. And like not seeing an opportunity to be heard.
Right. Exactly.
I think in youth, like even when you have this kind of voice pounding at your throat, like desperate to escape, you also want it to fall on ears that are welcoming.
Exactly.
And obviously that's not always going to be the case, but I do think that is the beauty of social media and the accessibility is like, and when you are sharing something that like for better, it currently worse is niche, should not be niche, but it is, right? And I think because of that, it's like really the only people that initially you're going to attract are people who want to hear you. And that kind of creates that safe space, that landing space for you to be able to share and see what works for you and see, I think even like what it is that you consider sacred and maybe you're not ready to share with people.
Yeah.
What has that been like for you? Like deciding what's sacred for yourself and what it is that you want to share?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me think. I think that I've been pretty open. Some things that I shy away from sharing, like for respect, like for my culture and like myself, and then also like for the community. Something that we're pretty close or we close guard is language, and so I'm I say some words that I know that are more broad or just like
like greetings.
Greetings, saying thank you, katabatash. But I've been mindful of not oversharing language. So keeping those things in mind.
Totally. Yeah. Language is so incredibly powerful because once you hand it over, it can be weaponized so quickly.
Absolutely.
And obviously we even see that in context of the English language and how manipulative it can be.
Yeah.
So you truly are performing necromancy on things that have been lost and taken, which is like a very, very specific role to take on as a cycle breaker. And you're doing it while also very much in grief.
Yes.
I know that your mother just passed and transitioned into spirit again. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah, of course. I'm so sorry. And you did mention at the beginning of our discussion that you have found joy and levity recently.
I have.
So how has that come to be?
It seems like such weird timing.
But also I think I understand.
Yeah. So for some context, and I think like for you too, like the last maybe a few years ago, my mom was diagnosed with something called MSA, and it stands for multiple systems atrophy. It's a neurological condition, essentially, where like the body just atrophies and like systems like slowly die. And I think for a long time I was experiencing like prolonged grief and grieving like in over the course of years. And I'm also in therapy, so that's really helpful talking about this.
Shouts out, dog.
Yeah,
100% like, the unsung heroes.
Yes. Yeah. It's been my lifeline. But yeah, I've been discussing that with my therapist, and I think that like knowing that I was taking that time to grieve, and I'm still very actively grieving. Of course. I think I find some comfort in the fact knowing like my mom is no longer in pain and no longer suffering as much as I miss her and I want her here and I want to talk to her. Right. But that provides me from some solace. And I've also just recently come into a really amazing friend group and I feel like I'm just like meeting beautiful souls.
Of course you
all
are.
the time.
You are one. Yeah, of course you are.
Thank you. And that just has given me it's just filled me so much
support.
Yeah, and just realizing how important community is.
Right. It's so stunning that in such immense loss you have clearly the universe and God has like called in a tribe of its own right, a different named tribe, right, and a new community and family, to kind of fill that space and really prop you up.
Yeah, my therapist, when I was telling her about it was this like very transformative trip I went to kind of last minute to DR, and I was telling her about it like yakking on, and she was like, no, I feel like like the universe and your mom like dropped you into this place to be loved, And it feels really good.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Thank you.
That's truly, truly incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think so many people are obviously so deeply fearful of loss and of death. And of like the great unknown that comes after something that cannot be undone.
Yep.
Right. And we make so many decisions. Of course. Of course. We make so many decisions in hopes that that will never happen to us, but it is going to happen to us.
It's inevitable.
Yeah, completely. And it is so beautiful how much you've shared. And even prior to your mom's passing, I remember seeing a post that you made where you talked about being the only child and a caretaker for two parents. And so to like hear that there is kind of a nuance of relief, I think is something that will bring a lot of people great comfort to hear.
I hope so.
And permission to feel that way.
Right. Permission to feel, like having grace with yourself and allowing yourself to feel is so big. I feel like one of my really good friends, Anu, I actually was able to spend time with her. That was also very helpful. And she was like, I feel like sometimes you're hard on yourself for feeling. Like, let yourself feel. It's okay. And so by doing that and by sharing, like that post that you saw, I think that was also in response to seeing other people that are in those roles or something like semi-adjacent share.
Totally.
And it made me feel less alone. So it's in the hopes of making other people feel less alone.
Right.
In that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Of course. Course. Where do you find, I think her name is Nora McInerney. She wrote a few books in her husband's passing about grief, and she specifically talked about how grief is a chronic condition, but we can find kind of like love's meeting place, like ways to like reconvene with people who have passed. What does that look like for you to like meet with your mom now? You know, like what do your conversations with her feel like or seem like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like I ask her for guidance a lot. It's really, for me, it's it doesn't involve being at any particular place. It's just like speaking aloud to her. And so asking her things, you know, like small things, like I was driving around yesterday, like, Mom, can you help me find a parking spot? Like,
right, period.
You got me, like, please. And then also like larger things, like really going through some things with realizing, you know, why I'm attracted to emotional unavailability and really having some triggers and difficulties with some recent developments.
Love interests?
What's that? Yeah, exactly. The way I'm talking around it so hard.
Yeah, 100%. I'm like, it's okay. You don't have to name them, but let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. That vibe. A prospective suitor.
Exactly.
A suitor. Yeah.
And so dealing with that, but also for the first time really sitting in the feelings that were triggering me and learning from them and realizing that like the things that I was running from could actually teach me.
Yes.
And so that has felt really great and transformative. And like through that process being like, Mom, can you help me like get through these patterns that I've now recognized. Now it's about not making the same decisions in the face of them.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That truly is the beauty of healing. Like, I think so many people think that the incentive to heal and to do the work and to go to therapy is that one day you're going to stop hurting. And it's actually that one day you'll feel this hurt again and you'll make a more compassionate choice.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, exactly.
And like it's so fortified and it creates this like self-trust. I think it's so beautiful that you are able to recognize, obviously, like the immediate connection potency of having your mother and your spiritual team and the fact that you know she's there. Like, it's not a question that she is there.
Yeah.
And that you can speak her name and honor her. And we have obviously like, and I know that this is a part of your very specific like tradition and veneration of ancestors and spirits that are here with you.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine that definitely helps in this transition.
It definitely does. No, I feel her everywhere. I also have a ritual where if I'm thinking about her at any time of the day, I say, I love you, Ma, I miss you, like aloud, just to like speak it. And that's helped me a lot. But yeah, even when I was, I went to the People's Choice Awards in December, which was amazing.
You were honored by Lizzo.
I was.
At the People's Choice Awards.
I know.
That is so iconic.
I know.
So iconic.
Yeah.
How did you feel?
It felt It felt amazing.
Right.
I actually coincidentally had like no nerves. I didn't feel like
Right.
that energy at all, but I felt honored and humbled, and I was so grateful to be there with all of the other amazing women
Totally.
that were chosen.
Right.
It was pretty wild.
Of course. And like
Yeah.
also to be in a space where you see your peers.
Yes.
I think that's like such an interesting thing when
Yeah.
you're doing this work, because it is, again, such ritual. It's like I'm gonna wake up and show up for my ancestry, for my lineage, for myself,
Yeah.
for my place in this world.
Yeah.
And you're just so head down in that, because it's ultimately thankless, right? Like as much as like people can honor you and say how amazing you are,
Right.
that work is deep. It really is only known to you for how important it is. And I think like to be able to, even just from external, to be able to watch you in that space and be honored with your peers, I was like, that's right. Like that's exactly
Thank
where
you.
she should be.
That means a lot. That
Yeah.
means a lot. Yeah, it felt like natural, but also was so surreal, you know, like getting
Totally.
a call from the producer, and I was actually, I think I had just moved into my apartment and I was like showering or something. My phone's always on D&D. My friends get on me all the time. But I saw a missed call and a voicemail, and I like saw, you know, the preview text.
Right.
I was like, hey, like producer from People's Choice, yada yada, Lizzo. I was like, wait, what? Let me call you back. Hold on. So I gave her a call back, and I was like, yeah, I think I can make myself free next week. Like,
Wow.
let's do this.
Yeah,
But
you're like, sure.
Yeah, I can figure that out.
Find some time.
I can find some time.
Find some.
For-
Yeah,
I can
absolutely.
squeeze it
For
in.
Lizzo? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was wild. And then in that moment, I actually that day was heading down to go to Lobby Call,
Right.
and had opened my suitcase again for some reason. Like I don't even remember. I think I was going to journal because I pulled out like the journal, and it fell out, and I have a photo of my mom in there, and it fell out onto the floor, and I was like, oh, like she's here, you know?
Oh my God, that makes me want to cry.
Yeah. And it made me cry.
Of
I
course.
definitely cried.
Of course.
Yeah. So I like cried a little, had a little moment, and then I was like, okay, let's like
Right.
up,
Right.
because makeup was
It's
done.
time to eat. Yeah, you said it's time to eat.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So then I had
100%.
to go. But yeah, I feel like even in the times where I don't, you know, I'm not seeing it physically.
Totally.
I know it, but that time I was like, wow,
Yeah.
she's here.
Yeah,
She's
and
doing
making
this.
herself so known.
Right.
Yeah, completely.
Right.
So do you identify as historian as well? Like, is that a role that you identify with and want to step into? It does feel that you're doing that, but it feels like there's something more.
I feel like I don't think I can call myself a historian. Not
Right.
yet, at least. I do think I've probably done some work that is similar. But yeah, I haven't like done the deep digging. Like my mom had like done tracing and spent like hundreds of hours tracing
Right.
us back to the 1600s. Actually, like did the family line, and I
Wow.
have done nothing like compared or comparable to that.
Completely.
But yeah, I think I'm kind of stepping into that.
Right. In being like on the receiving end of that work and growing up around that, was there anything about the history of the Chappaquiddick Wampanoag and your people's time on the Nuepe, like was there anything about that felt intrinsically you? Like those moments where you're like, oh, that reminds me of me. Like you see a picture of like a great lost aunt that you didn't know, or like there's like a gift that everybody in your tribe has. Like, is there something that you knew like that you were of that?
I think a bit. I feel like something that a lot of people in my family seem to have is the ability to like story tell and like hearing about those and like oral stories and those traditions.
Yes.
That really spoke to me and resonated with me. And I feel like a lot of my friends actually think, like always tell me, they're like, I love your storytelling.
Yeah, of course.
So that's something that I've always felt kind of like connected to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it feels like a natural gift.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
What does it mean? What has it meant for you now to be able to, do you feel any resistance to things that have been placed on you? Do you feel any resistance to roles that have been placed on you? And obviously that I feel like that would definitely have transformed in the
Yeah.
passing of your mother. Maybe there are things that
Yeah.
you like once didn't love that you're like, well, now this is my journey.
Right,
Like
totally.
what has that experience been like for you?
I'm trying to think things that have been placed on me.
Roles, stories that you heard about yourself.
Yeah.
I think obviously even just like being a caretaker, it's like
Right.
that is really hard, and nobody is born wanting
Right.
to not really have to be able to be a
Right.
child.
Yeah.
Like,
No, yeah, that was difficult. Actually, I think that something to get I think to kind of go there.
Yeah, totally.
In the vein of caretaking, I feel like a lot of the issues I'm working through have to do with parent a parent that was like pretty emotionally unavailable.
Absolutely.
And so having to like have the like burden or the expectation of like carrying on those parents' emotions
Completely.
and holding space for them and
Right.
for having to, you know, like visual like kind of what did my therapist say? Having
Totally.
to like pick up cues non-verbally that like
Absolutely.
you shouldn't have to do
Completely.
as a child. I'm shedding a lot of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like feeling, you know, it's so fascinating too, because when you're raised caretaking and also making assumptions about other people's needs, you learn how to forget your own on purpose, right?
Yeah.
You're like, this is much easier, like,
Yeah.
because I can't do it for me and them because I'm
Right.
just a baby.
Yeah. I am literally.
I'm a baby. And so like if I have to choose, I'm gonna choose them because they're the ones that I'm hearing are supposed to give this to me.
Right.
So let me do this first. Right. And then like later on you also become like resentful of your own needs.
Yes.
Like, and it's really, really challenging then to develop relationships as an adult.
Yeah.
You did mention that you've like found another chosen family, which is so beautiful, and you're more than deserving of that. How has it been to like shed that kind of lack of availability of your own and be able to like receive your own needs? Like, have there been any specific experiences or even like aha moments where you're like, I'm deserving of this, like I need to show up for my needs, like I need to stand up for myself, and like they need to be in the room now?
Yeah. I think I think I've just had this amazing experience of like feeling comfortable enough to just like say my needs.
Yeah.
And then when they're well received, I'm like, oh, like this doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to chase for your needs.
Right.
And realizing that has been pretty wild. And even wow, hold on. Even
Period. Open up that throat chakra, babe.
Just got to do some like warm up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even just like the smallest things where you know, you're not like seen or necessarily like prioritized by caretakers, and just talking with friends and then being like, oh, I really love the way your mind works, or I really just like comments like that, like just to be, we were all talking about how much we love each other because we have this group chat.
Completely.
And I was just, I remembered a note that I wrote like right when we had left. And it was that I'd realized after this trip that just to be is enough. And I sent it to everybody. But I was like, this is what I wrote after I left. Yeah.
That is so stunning. Yeah. How have you practiced or fortified that since you had that realization?
And those relationships are in general?
All of them. All of them. Even in, I guess, like in your creative work, right? Like I think Joey, our producer in here, we were talking about how like, you know, just setting boundary, the realization that boundaries are important, so that people know what to expect of you.
True.
Is even in your work is like, those things are all connected. There's synchronicity between your ability to name your needs and show up for boundaries in your romantic relationships and your platonic friendships, all the way down to your projects of like, hey, we need a video yesterday. And you're like, actually, I need sleep today though. So I'll get it for you in 2 days.
Very important.
And that's just setting a reasonable expectation for what I can be.
Yeah.
So what is that?
Okay, I have a couple of things that have come up regarding kind of like work relationships. Well, the first is actually shortly after my mom passed away, and I was kind of stepping into this already. And I was communicating with somebody who's not my main agent. They had had somebody else, and I was like, hey, I'd be open to doing, you know, these partnerships, though. Like my mom just passed away. I need a couple of weeks, whatever. Totally. And she responded back to everything but that my mom passed away. And
no.
Yes, exactly. And so I looked at that and I was like, don't like that.
Absolutely.
Right. And instead of maybe being like, oh, I don't want to ruin this deal, or I don't want to be difficult, I just responded back.
You addressed it.
Yeah, I addressed my concern. And I wrote back to her and I was like, you know what? I actually don't think I feel comfortable proceeding with these partnerships. I just disclosed that my mom passed away like less than a month ago, and I didn't hear anything in response to that. That makes me uncomfortable. I don't like it.
Absolutely.
And she actually responded back. It opened up a chance for a beautiful conversation. And I had a feeling. It was so weird. I had this intuition that after I sent the message that maybe she had gone through something similar.
Yes.
And she messaged me back and she's like, I'm so sorry for doing that. I actually lost my mom a couple of years ago, and my response was always head down, and I didn't have those moments and didn't have those moments afforded to me.
The space.
And
That's
so
exactly right.
Right. And so I didn't, you know, and I'm so sorry for not acknowledging it. Like I
Wow.
felt like it was uncomfortable for me. And I was like, I really appreciate you coming back with this. I'm so sorry you lost your mother. And I appreciate, like, maybe we can find a middle ground and work on this.
Totally.
But it allowed this openness that,
of course,
if I, you know, was just like whatever, or just kept going forward, I would have had this feeling like I didn't honor what was going on in my body.
True. Exactly. Yeah. You would have betrayed yourself.
Right.
And ultimately, unbeknownst to you, you would have actually ended up also kind of betraying this person.
Yes.
And that is the amazing thing about the truth.
Yeah.
Like, it truly does completely transform the environment the second that it establishes itself in the room.
Definitely.
You know? And like, it's so amazing how in that moment you had to push, of course, like, this is again just the burden of breaking cycles.
Mm-hmm.
And even when you don't want to, right? Even if you don't realize that it's beyond you, it's still beyond you.
Yep.
You're like, okay, I'm going to take this deeply personal moment where, like, I know that I have to speak this because it's inappropriate.
Yeah.
And like, just even in recognition of your mom and the loss of her, it's like, I'm not going to let her be unspoken in this moment.
Exactly.
I'm not going to let the fact that my grief deserves to exist be unspoken.
Right.
And like, this is a really human experience. I'm not going to let you make me feel alien or unknown for something that all of us will have to eventually face.
Exactly.
And it turns out that this person had already faced it. And like, that is one of the most depressing things about grief for me, especially in the last, like, you know, the last 3.5 years, we've all experienced collective grief together, and then also had our own personal grievances in between, like in that time, is that the world does not stop. Like, capitalism does not rest.
Doesn't care.
Work does not rest. And like, how do we learn how to care for ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
How do we learn how to do that? How have you learned how to do that?
I think, like by moments like those.
Right.
And I know, you know, I think that even that is a privilege.
It is.
I'm really grateful that my mom, you know, is still in a way taking care of me after she's passed. And I feel a little bit like I feel comfortable enough to say things like that.
Right.
Like maybe I won't participate in this. But I think that even if you maybe don't feel comfortable or aren't afforded that luxury, still speaking your mind in some way is part of breaking those things and challenging how we're able to feel and experience grief.
Totally. Absolutely. No, that's a big Scorpio rising mood as well. You know what I'm saying? Like, just confronting the things that people are unwilling to or too fearful of because they know on the other end of that there's so much more work to do. Right.
Yes.
Like, that's the thing. Like, we can like name grief, or you can be like, I'm sad.
Yeah.
I'm sad. This is terrible. I cannot believe this happened to me. Why did it happen? Like, you know, all of the things that come with that. It's like, those experiences feel so isolating because we always feel that we're the first to have experienced them. And in reality, we're the only ones that matter in that moment. And allowing that to be true is such a challenge, while also balancing like the normalizing, right? Like normalizing, but not generalizing your experience. That's what my therapist always says. She's like, you know, I want to normalize, not generalize. It's not that this is worthless because it's happened to everybody, but it has happened to everybody, and you too will be able to face this. Like, you were equipped with the tools to face this. And that feels really affirming to me, but it took me a really, really long time to like not minimize my own struggle, but also not catastrophize it to the point that I don't exist anymore. Right. And making myself a human being.
Yeah, definitely.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
So moving into like, I want to move a little bit into your joy.
Sure.
What does joy look like now? How are you finding levity?
Sure.
What do you like to do to find levity? What does that look like for you?
I like to laugh. Like,
Period.
I just like
You're in a silly, goofy mood.
I'm in a silly, goofy
mood. A hee hee ha ha mood.
I just love a hee hee ha ha. I love just like cackling and laughing.
Totally.
With people, like in general.
Totally.
It just brings, like, I just feel like it's like just like the body can't contain the joy. Like, it's everything.
Of course.
I love laughing. I'm trying to think of like what I do to laugh, but I feel like I just find like moments like in existence. Like, I feel like we were laughing just like so much, just like greeting each other earlier.
Totally.
Just finding the joy.
Yeah, you have to.
Which is something actually I've been like something that I've not tailored. What's the word I'm looking for? Something that I've noticed that I've done with my work in general is kind of like sometimes putting on this like front of sorts. And I think that it was because when I started, I felt like there was a certain way I should be or a certain way I should act or communicate this information. And while I think that, you know, I got the point across and it's doing okay, I really edited out a lot of the
like goofy
parts
stuff
of me. Yeah, just like my natural mannerisms or how I would just like actually be, and I'm starting to really incorporate that a lot more. And so I'm really excited in general and also for like work to be able to be more authentically myself, and I feel like that's showing up online and in real life.
Yeah, absolutely. 100. I feel like I can experience that completely. That's like one of my favorite things about watching creators who I feel just like innately connected to, because I can feel the pulse of your spirit and I understand that it comes from such an authentic place. And like, I understand also the power of authenticity is that when it's received, it then overflows in abundance. Yeah. It just like, it amplifies itself. Yeah. Right. And so I feel like that is absolutely happening. Yeah. And like, what a beautiful thing. I feel like that is the gorgeous part about experiences that like bring us to our knees, that they also make us undress ourselves because it's not that fucking deep. No. Like, you realize that we are just creating our silly little videos, doing our silly little tasks. Yeah. And like, the silly is what makes them tangible to people. And that's not to say that like we're not talking, like if we talk about reparations and land reclamation and like we're talking about genocide, right? Like those things are for real. They're very serious, have very real. Exactly. Very real consequences. And also we still have to show up for those things. Yeah. We don't like get off the hook just because we think that it doesn't apply to us. With that being said, it's like, the silliness of it, the like authenticity of you is what humanizes the experience. Right, exactly. And it's so nice that people get to have that part of yourself. Yeah. So what kind of work now are you doing within your tribe that you want people to be a part of and like want to activate people to show up for? Yeah, for sure. So I think like the biggest our biggest goal is land back. Of course. That is the biggest goal in our tribe. What are action items that the average person can do to show up for Indigenous peoples? That's a really great question. Action items to show up for Indigenous peoples. I think non-tangible is listen to Indigenous stories, share Indigenous stories to support Indigenous peoples. Like, it doesn't always have to be a monetary or financial type of situation or backing. But I think that something with sharing and with listening, something that a lot of people don't know is actually that you can donate land to tribes. So yeah, like your own land. I'm also gonna move my leg because like get comfortable. Get comfortable. Oh, my dad always said to like not sit on my legs, but no, do what you gotta do. Here we are. Yeah, gonna still do it. So yeah. Actually, okay. Yeah, you can donate your land. Donate land to tribes, and so many people don't know that. I mean, it's not information that's been well circulated, right? Of course. But yeah, you instead of doing a sale, you have to I think talk with the interior or the secretary of any given state, and you can actually donate to a tribe that has like 501c3 nonprofit. Wow. And that's something, I actually had shared that on our tribe Instagram because we have a page as well separately from mine, and a woman there who's a landowner reached out and was like, wow, I wish I knew this. We like had, multiple parcels and had sold them, and if I had known, I would love to have donated to the tribe. And it's like, but yeah, exactly. Also I'm glad that they know now. Totally. But yeah, I think that. So you can offer a personal deed to the land and still live on it. You can offer. Well, you can do both. You can offer a personal deed, or you can like deed and transfer fully the land over to a tribe. But I mean, a lot of the times you want the financial gain, so people don't just exactly donate. 100%. Well, and I'm just thinking about like how often like even like in passing or bankruptcy or whatever. Like recently, I was speaking to a friend of mine who a family member passed, and she was talking about how she had to like go back to the American South where her family's from in order to kind of have this discussion about where the land is going. Yeah. And I was thinking about how like I actually know many people from like the American South who that's true for, like a lot of Black folks who like just, I mean, obviously there's so much trauma attached to in the connection between Black folks and the land, right? But ultimately, like, it belongs to us. That was true prior to the transatlantic slave trade, and particularly true for Afro-Indigenous peoples, right? That's like a combination.
Definitely.
Of deep-seated interest in returning back to the land and being able to have ownership of it. But yeah, I was thinking about that. I was like, there are so many people who like have actual like ancestral ownership to land and have rejected it because of things that are so deeply traumatic. And at the same time, like, this feels like a common interest between the American Black folks who have history in the transatlantic slave trade and Indigenous peoples who were here prior.
Yeah. No, it definitely overlaps. I think that we actually just, you know, as peoples that were minorities and were the ones that built up this country, have so many shared stories and histories, and we're so much stronger together. And I think like realizing how much we have in common is so important, and that is one of them. For sure.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Absolutely.
For sure.
Speaking of storytelling, what is like, I am such a firm believer. I think you're the first person that I've asked this directly, but I am such a firm believer that like the stories and the folk tales and the lore that you connected with most as a child is representative of like your hero's journey or like your life path. Were there any stories that you really, really loved? That could be both Indigenous and not, like, obviously that's also close. That could be closed in practice. Yeah. But that you feel like makes sense now?
Let me think. Nothing's like immediately coming to mind, and I hate when that happens.
No, you know what? I was thinking about this actually yesterday because I was rewatching The Little Mermaid. Okay. And that was one of my favorite stories as a child because I felt voiceless in my home. And now I'm a professional storyteller. And so that makes so much sense because that gift or that feeling of needing to like refine language and like make it important, I feel like is what I do now. And that made so much sense to me. Oh my God. Honestly, that could also be just like things that you connect with now. Like, what do you like? What are some shows that you love, some stories that you love, characters that you love on TV, and you're like, that is Kara coded.
Okay, so a show that I like, but this isn't like, I don't think it's Kara coded, but a show that I really liked is The Undoing. Like, that's such a dramatic show. Like, I hope, like, well, yeah, no, I don't want anyone.
No, babe, you don't need to connect. Nobody needs to connect with that at all. True.
You're right. Okay, let me think of another one.
You know what?
Yeah.
Do you watch Sex and the City?
Okay, I do. But okay, I feel like as I've aged, that show, like, I find more and more things that are a little bit like
heinous. Yeah, of course.
It. But yes, I really do love that show. I feel like I'm a mix, or would be a mix, kind of between Carrie with some of my unhealed and unresolved traumas. Absolutely. We're working on those. But also in Miranda, just for the like comedic relief. I feel like, okay, so there we go. Right. That's where I'm gonna take it today.
That is always where I go. That is always where I go. Is I'm like, if I need to do a character study on something that is blank coded, identity X coded, I'm gonna ask you which Sex and the City cast member you think you are, what combination.
Yeah,
because I feel like it's
Carrie
helpful.
Miranda. Yeah.
I think I'm also a Carrie Miranda. Oh. I really appreciate that. You know what? I think that I think there is a performance of me that I feel like people would assume is like a Samantha. Just because I'm like, I'm going there. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I can see that.
I want to I'm definitely here for the shock value and for the nitty and the gritty of it all. And like, I'm a little bit vampy, but I think to my core, I'm just like deeply intellectual and messy, and will do things for the bit. Yeah. And we'll do things because there's a story there. And that's very Carrie. Right. And then also like as like lighthearted as I think I am, those things have consequences. Yes. And Carrie also doesn't understand that. Right. So like see her, feel her. Yeah. Right.
I do.
And then like Miranda's obviously like maybe a Capricorn Taurus mashup of a character. And so like, she's just a little bit serious, you know? Yes,
she is.
Like she broke up with somebody because they went to the bathroom in front of her. And I feel like that's something that would give me
wild.
Yeah. 100%.
That's insane. I'm so sorry. Like, it's not, it's like not the like most beautiful thing ever, but
no, and also it's like, well, it's like naturally also a part of intimacy, which I think is, I understand that. Like there are parts of Miranda's character arc, including obviously the entirety of her relationship with Steve, even through the rerun.
Yeah.
Where like she just doesn't like how available he is to her.
It has more to do, I think, with an avoidance of intimacy and being uncomfortable with intimacy for sure.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So,
what makes you feel exactly? So Miranda, I get that. And you know what? That's a perfect segue into my question for you is like, what makes you feel most loved and most cared for? Like what do you feel like the people in your life, like what makes you feel like you're being poured into as somebody who has so much to give and so much to offer and does?
Yeah, that's a great question. What makes me feel loved? I think I feel like just quality time is a big thing for me.
Right.
Like having friends just like be there for you, invest in you, show up. That is everything. Trying to think.
I love that.
Sorry, my brain's going so smooth.
Great.
Let's edit.
No, that's great. No, you're great. You're great. Like, what is showing up? What does showing up look like? Are you like an acts of service person? Are you a quality time person?
I think more so quality time.
Yeah.
Like just being there for me, talking to me, being available, like just being available to me on FaceTime. You know, like going through the grief and loss of my mom.
Yeah, of course.
Some of my like best friends just like making themselves available, like no matter what time. Just picking up my call, like that means everything. Just to be able to like communicate with friends for sure.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Is that something that you had to learn how to ask for, or like?
I think I've had and I still like have to learn how to ask for it, or you know the times that it doesn't happen. I'm like, oh, like why didn't they just
and you
know
want to
that
be like
I needed
they hate
it?
me? Yeah, exactly.
And so like realizing that like that's not always the case, and sometimes you have to say like, hey, I'm feeling this way right now. I may need support, and that looks like this.
Totally.
That's something that I'm still definitely working
Yeah.
on. But and even like, which is more acts of service, I guess. But just friends, like listening to and offering. I was doing a closet sale yesterday, and I got no sleep. Like this never happens, but it happens on the worst days when it does. And I had to be up so early. I had to set up for this. Was working it all day, and I had told my best friend, one of my best friends, Alexa, I was like, hey, I'm literally like, I can't today. This is going to be so rough. And she was like, well, I'm planning to stop by the sale. I'm going to get you a chai. And she like,
that's so sweet.
She brought me like the smallest things, but you know, just like supporting in the ways that you can.
Right. And just like make you feel held and like, oh, you've thought of me.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. I find that like those little and intentional actions make me feel like grandiosity actually kind of makes me uncomfortable. Like when people do things that are just a bit much, it's not that I'm resistant to receive. It's that I don't, and if it doesn't make sense for the situation, it feels like it could be like hung over my head or like used for manipulate. Like I just have this like, totally. That's exactly it. And so I find myself really, really touched by like those small acts of service as well. Because they feel fleeting. And in that way I know that like I was just a passing thought for you, and that feels actually more intentional. This like what do we do about a problem like Kendra versus being like, actually you're not a problem at all, you're a part of my life. And caring for you is just a part of my life.
Actually something I was thinking of the other day too, with just like all of the friends in my life just being able to say like actively while we're here, like I love you so much. Like expressing that love. I think that's really big for me because another to be very personal, but in case anyone else has experienced this or goes through something similar, my dad is so like avoidant and is not available. And even with just this past Mother's Day, I didn't hear from him. And I was like, wow, this is my first Mother's Day without my mom. And I don't have my dad checking in on me. I felt so much love from like friends, community, other family members. And I was like, ooh, am I going to say something and regret say something, or am I going to not and regret not saying anything? And so I did address it, and I was like, hey, look, I hope you're doing okay. This was my first Mother's Day without mom. If it would have meant a lot if you checked in on me. And his response, which I think is very it's very integral to like how I've operated, was like, oh, you know, I'm thinking about you and that I care about you. You know.
Actually, I don't.
So, and that's like the snippet I'll share. But yeah, like the and I'm like, oh, I don't. Like I'm telling you. Yes, I'm telling you. I need to hear it. Like that would make me feel loved. And so I was really proud of myself for doing that.
I'm so proud of you. So appreciate that you mentioned that the choice in that moment was like avoid the situation similarly to him. and feel regret because I know that that's a cycle I'm re-entering.
Yes.
Right. And I'm choosing or choose something else, which is breaking the cycle and feeling regret because no matter what, loss is there.
Yeah.
And I think that that is like the bitterness of adulthood.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
choosing better than what was handed to us.
Yeah.
Is that no matter what, loss is there, and we have to choose the loss that we can live with because we know we chose better for us.
Ooh.
And it sounds like that's what you did, which is really beautiful.
Earlier, I can't snap.
That was
that yeah.
That's so beautiful.
Period.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And also you're learning how to snap.
Yeah.
Which is also really gorgeous. Kara shared with us earlier that she's learning how to snap.
This one sounds not as crisp.
And you know, it's on its way.
I can't. Okay, I can't follow that up.
Well, you know, in the nail is very content.
That is
it's current.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's giving
sounds a little.
That's it.
Okay.
See,
we're
nailing
done.
it. Look at us nailing it. Nailing it. Okay, my last question for you, which don't worry is not complicated.
Okay.
unless it is.
Unless it is
I ask
for me.
everybody this: if you were to create a recipe for cycle breaking and you were to list a few ingredients, anywhere from 1 to 5, what would they be in your own personal experience?
Okay, so one main thing, because I think I recently saw it on TikTok, that one of our, I think the generational curse where a lot of us are dealing with the most is avoidance.
I saw that too, and
That
that
hit.
shit hurted.
Yeah,
exactly.
I was like, can't read. I think that it would be to address is one of the ingredients, like address and communicate in all ways, always.
Right.
I think it would involve grace is another recipe.
That's my favorite word.
Yeah. Is it?
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I feel really challenged to show up for it. And also I feel like a lot of my life I haven't been shown it. So now it's my favorite. I'm owning it.
You deserve all the grace.
Thank you so much.
You deserve all the grace.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think grace for sure. For others and for ourselves. That's so important.
It's a mutual relationship.
It definitely is. And laughter.
Yes.
For some lightness.
Yes.
And levity and the cycle breaking. Like it really, if you make it all serious,
you won't survive.
You're not going to survive. It's going to be dark as fuck. Can I swear on here?
Yeah, of course you
it's going to be dark as fuck.
Completely. Well, and also it's not true.
Yeah.
Like truth is dual.
Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is. All of that exists at once and can exist at once.
That's exactly it. Like I feel like one of the ways that I've been able to show up for myself in adulthood most is the recognition that like there's the child, like inner child in me that wants to have all good or all bad experiences because that is a part of youth and like naivety.
Yeah.
But in reality, like I want to be able to hold all of me at once. And that means the shadow and the light. And that means it's true for other people. And even the experiences that like we get to devour and consume. It's like, it's not going to always be the sweetest thing or the most bitter. It's going to be a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And owning that and just like having a key is so important.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here with me today. I feel really, really grateful to have been able to share this, and I appreciate your vulnerability so much.
Thank you.
I know that I have been transformed a lot by what you've shared today, so I hope that our readers will, or our listeners will too.
That means so much. It's mutual.
What do we have to look forward to that's coming up with you, and where can everybody find you?
For sure. So as I was just telling Kendra earlier, I am working on 2 books. I'm working on like a nonfiction book, which is like more info soon, and a children's book. So for the little ones, or for like your inner child, you know.
Oh yeah, I love children's books actually.
Yeah, they're dope. Doing that, and I think those are my largest projects that I'm working on. A lot of writing.
Of course, as you should.
And you can find me both on Instagram and TikTok at Kara Roselle S.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Amazing. Tap in, y'all. We'll see you soon. This podcast and every episode is produced and edited by Joey Geballa, music by Sufi Hamilton, and of course, the voice of Kendra Austin. See you soon.